welcome back to Cinematic Sarcastic, the podcast that talks all things movies and television. I'm Natalie, and I'm your host. On today's episode, we are going to talk about The Invitation. Hear me out. Hear me out. I got suckered into this one by the trailer. It led me to believe that something else was happening here that did not end up happening. So I am a very big vampire person. Vampire person? That's not right. I love vampire fiction, vampire movies. I will get suckered into that stuff all day long. I was a huge Anne Rice fan when I was younger. I haven't read quite a bit of her newer works, and obviously I know she's passed, but the Vampire Chronicles, I was all over that business for surezies, and I really loved the movie adaptation of Interview with a Vampire. So when I saw the trailer for The Invitation, it actually reminded me of another film, and I was super excited to see it because I was like, oh, if it's like this film, but with vampires, it's going to be amazing. So the film that it reminded me of from the trailer is this movie that was a horror thriller that came out a couple years ago called Ready or Not, with this gorgeous, gorgeous actress, Samara Weaving, who kind of reminds me of a little bit of a doppelganger of Margot Robbie. But the premise of Ready or Not was that she's going to marry this man. He takes her home to meet his family or to have some sort of wedding get together dinner. And it turns out that his family has this tradition, this horrifying tradition of kind of trying to kill each other during this particular dinner. And so she ends up just turning into this absolute badass and defending herself and kind of slaughtering everyone in her wedding dress. And it's amazing. It's definitely would highly recommend watching Ready or Not. So when I saw The Invitation, because it sounded similar, right? That she's found this mysterious family she didn't know she had, and she's going to meet them, and there's going to be a wedding, and the added bonus of there being vampires in it. And I was like, yes, it's Ready or Not Vampire Edition. And I was all in. However, The Invitation was not Ready or Not Vampire Edition. I think it was trying to be. And that's the thing. I think that the writers of The Invitation saw Ready or Not, and they were like, yeah, we can totally do that, but vampires. And then they proceeded to not really do it well. So The Invitation pretty much is given away in the trailer, but the whole premise of The Invitation is this girl, Evie. Her mother has passed away. She's pretty much all by herself. She, for some reason, and it doesn't really explain why she does it, but she does a DNA test, discovers that she has this long lost family she didn't know she had, and they happen to be British. So she gets invited back to England to meet this long lost family. And it turns out that this long-lost family of hers, for generations upon generations, have been sort of servants to Walter, who is this head vampire. And every family contributes. This is where it gets wonky. Every family, I think there's 3 main families in this village. And each one of those main families, so if you picture it like Game of Thrones, right, would be House Targaryen and House, Stark or whatever. Each one of those houses or those families contributes to Walter, this vampire, a wife. And Evie, I guess, by luck of the draw, happens to be the only female left in this family that could potentially be offered up as a wife. So the wedding that she kind of gets invited to as part of this come meet the family thing turns out to be her own. And she discovers that she's meant to marry this vampire dude, and kind of has to go on this bloodbath of trying to defeat them. Here's where they got it wrong. I think that they 100% were meaning to copy Ready or Not, but because of the addition of that vampire element, no one in the movie, or at least we'll say the writers, didn't take it very seriously, which I think that the movie could have been good if they had. And the saddest part of it is that the main character, Evie, is actually played by Natalie Emmanuel, who was in Game of Thrones. And I think that she was the worst. I think it's one of two things. And I'm going to say that my opinion is that she just didn't take it seriously because it was a vampire movie and therefore didn't really just try as hard, or she's just not a very good actress. And I really loved her from Game of Thrones. So I want to say that my opinion is she just didn't take it seriously because it was a cheesy vampire film. And I don't disagree with her, but it could have been slightly better, probably not great, but slightly better if she had actually brought her A game and meant to do it with some seriousness. But I think that there had to be some differences in writing. I think the script would have had to have been changed a little bit. The pacing of it was very strange. The first hour or so is just kind of story setup. And then the last really half hour, 45 minutes was kind of this fighting for her life sort of situation. So it's a little bit not well paced or not well structured. I think that the setup could have been much shorter and the actual fighting sequence, action sequences, such and such could have been longer just to make the movie not quite as drab. But I will say, I think the one saving grace of The Invitation, and probably the reason that the majority of people clicked The Invitation to watch it, was Thomas Doherty. And Thomas Doherty plays the vampire in the movie, and I think he was cast absolutely perfectly. He is gorgeous. I know he has done some modeling for Dior, and he does a lot of runway work. I don't know if The Invitation is his first actual film, but he does well. I was pretty impressed, considering that he is a runway model. That transition from being a model into being an actor sometimes doesn't go the greatest. I'm thinking of something sort of like The Rock. His transition from being in the WWE to being an actor was bumpy. It wasn't the greatest transition, because acting in wrestling is a lot different than acting in a film. And I think that his first few films probably were pretty horrifying, how he did the acting. And of course, I think a lot of things were stacked against him. The CGI in The Mummy Returns, or whichever one, Scorpion King, that he was in wasn't great. So that didn't help. But for Thomas Doherty, him going from being a model to being an actor, I think was a pretty smooth transition. He does a pretty great job in The Invitation. And I would say, if you really just want something pretty, this movie is, there are things there for that. There is this character in this film named Victoria. She is another one of Walter's wives, just from a different family. I swear to God, she was cast specifically because she looks like, is it Madam or Lady? Dominescu, whoever from the Resident Evil games, the vampire lady, the tall one with the knockers. She looks exactly like that. She's very tall. She's very curvaceous, we'll say. She's stunning. But I guarantee you they cast her because she looks like the character from Resident Evil. I would put money on it, because it's just too coincidental that she happens to look so similar to that, and they dressed her pretty similarly. So I think that there was some intention there. So if you just want to see some cool looking vampire characters and you have an hour and a half to kill, I would say give it a go, give it a go. There's some nice eye candy in it. The story is lame. It's not as great as it potentially could have been because vampires for me don't automatically kill a film. It's possible to make a good one. There are quite a few of them out there that I cherish and absolutely love. Like Daybreakers, I think it's called Daybreakers, was one of them. It can be done. It can be done well. This one just didn't quite pull it off. So yeah, either way, if you have some free time, I would say definitely check it out. I like the wives in this. Evie obviously doesn't really officially become a wife, but the other two, Victoria and Lucy, their dynamic together I thought was cute. Not worth watching the film, but it was cute to see it. If you're gonna watch it, there's some, incentive. Yeah. So let me know what you guys thought of The Invitation. If you had a chance to watch it, subscribe if you want to join the Movie Nerd family, and I hope to see you in the next episode.